So you want to start a photography business this year. Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today's video, and just cut out all the fluff. Let's go into topic number one. First thing you need to do to be a successful photography business or a successful photographer is to determine the niche that you want to perform in. So for example, if you want to be a wedding photographer, that is your niche. Don't try to dabble in a bunch of other different things. So to give you an example of what I did, I chose kind of two niches that were somewhat relative to one another. I did weddings and also like concert photography. The concert photography for me was more of a hobby and a passion project rather than actually getting paid for it, because my main concentration, my main revenue stream came from weddings. But things like boudoir photography or infant and newborn photography, those were not areas that I would ever touch. So the more you can niche down what it is that you want to do, whether it's sports photography, landscapes is probably not the best, but maybe real estate photography is another good one. You could do travel lifestyle photography, you could do product photography. Figure out what makes you excited and what you're really good at already, and that's your niche, that's what you need to move forward with. Tip number two, if you haven't already started doing this, is you need to start building your brand based on top of that niche. So let's talk about weddings, for example. Weddings are typically more high class, they're more elegant, they tend to be more expensive. So maybe your branding could reflect that, maybe using colors like white or black or gold and yellows and purples and things like that, that look and show that more of that elegance, that more high class, fine style of a look. Versus if you're doing something like boudoir photography, you might want to do a lot of blacks and reds and maroons and crushed purples or things like that. Think about how your brand reflects the work that you're actually creating and what kind of message you want to get out there. Essentially, all branding is, in a nutshell, is a visual representation of what your brand is all about, whether that's through video, photo, graphics, or what you're posting on social media. Which brings me into a whole nother point. When you are establishing that brand, make sure you're thinking about your social media. How do you want your posts to look? How frequently are you going to post? What's your website going to look? These are all important aspects of the branding process, although some of these we will talk about in different sections. So first of all, get your niche, take care of your brand, and then step number three, a little bit more boring stuff, but it is stuff that needs to be done, is the administrative side of things. So now that you know what type of photography you're going to be doing, what you're going to be called, what everything's going to look like, what are the legalities of things? Do you have tax software in mind? Do you have client galleries in mind so they can download their photos, or are you strictly going to make people order prints? I really don't see print ordering being as big as it used to. Most people like to go out and do their own, and for me personally, setting up a client gallery is the way to go. You also want to make sure you have proper office supplies. Do you have a printer? Do you have contracts in mind? What is your pricing structure going to be? All these important details that you need to go through before you even put out for the first job offer to get in your first client, so you have everything in line, so everything will be structured and nice and neat and scheduled, and you won't be freaking out. Now, if you do want to learn more, I have a very extensive checklist that you can get for free if you just subscribe to my newsletter below. This PDF file will be sent straight over to you, and it's got pretty much a checklist for every category and everything that I can't fit into today's video. So if you want that, check the description box below. So I know that the administrative side of things isn't necessarily fun, but it is things that need to be done. And once you get those things done, you can move on to step number four, which is to either start your portfolio or continue building upon it. You always want to get better. And sometimes the images that you are putting out right now are the best images that you are capable of producing. But over time, your skills are going to get better, your photographs are going to get better, and sometimes those older images can be replaced. So make sure you're keeping an up-to-date portfolio with the best possible images that you could put out to the world to market and sell yourself. Because when people are shopping for a photographer, they're going to look at these things. They're going to look at your social media pages and see if you've been active. So they're going to check out your reviews. They're going to see images that you've been sharing and posting. Because if they see high quality content, they're going to want to come to you because they want the best content overall. Now, tip number five is going to vary depending on what niche of photography that you're doing. Let's say, for example, that you are a general portrait photographer. So you do things like families, couples, your basic general photography needs. But this might also include things like going back to school, a yearly trend to stay on top of. This might include Christmas photos to make Christmas cards, maybe Halloween, fall style photos. Maybe something for Valentine's Day, especially if you're a boudoir photographer. Valentine's Day is probably going to be a very popular time of year for you. And if you're doing wedding photography, think about the peak seasons when these different types of weddings are happening. Typically spring, summer, and fall are the biggest, but there are still some in the winter time. So make sure that whatever niche you're in, you're staying on top of popular trends going on. If you're a sports photographer, make sure that you have the schedules of all the local high schools and colleges around. If there's bigger events and you want to work on building your portfolio to bigger things, maybe something like NASCAR, for example. I got some experience shooting in NASCAR when I was in college. We did some contracts through the local speedway and we got paid a little bit of money to go out and get experience in that fast-paced, high-action photography. So maybe that's something you can do too, is if you don't have that portfolio base built, work with the local schools or sports complexes or whoever it is to see if you can get in and just shoot things for free and maybe offer them some of the images afterwards, just as a way for you to get some practice. You'd be surprised when you just reach out to people how many people are willing to help you, especially when you're offering them services free of cost. Now, this is if you don't have a portfolio already and you're wanting to build something in a particular niche that you're not already jumping into. But yeah, just stay on top of those trends. And that's really it. That's my 5 tips that I want to give you today. There's a lot more involved in this overall process. So if you do want to learn more, leave some comments in the comment section below and I will take what you're saying there and try to craft a second video on this. And again, if you want to get more into a deep dive of what all it's going to take to build your business from scratch, or if you've kind of got started, be sure to go to my newsletter and get a copy of that checklist because it's going to help you out tenfold just to see all the different things that you need to go through. And honestly, there might be a couple of things that I missed as well, but these are all the things that I could think of that I've had to do in the past to start my businesses, and some areas I put in there are areas that I didn't really concentrate on when I got started the first time or two, and I failed because of these things that I didn't even think about. So be sure you go through that checklist to build your business, and I hope you have a successful year this year building your photography business, and most importantly of all, be sure to create something new today.